What's going on, coaches? How are y'all doing this evening? I hope you're safe. You haven't caught the Rona. It's not raining anywhere. We are having a slew of storms, and I hope you're back at football and you're enjoying it and you're just bonding with your players. I am thrilled to be back at football. We've got one more day, and then we've got that break for July 4th, and then we go hopefully into phase two. What we've got today is Coach Dub Maddox. He is going to be telling us how he uses the R4 to play the game before it's played, and I just can't freaking. I am excited. Noah, how you doing, man? Mario, how you doing? Let's just dive right into it, fellas. I don't want to miss the thing, like Aerosmith said. So let's do this. And I also made an Aerosmith joke, and I have a NASA shirt. All right, let's get to this.
Welcome, coaches. Thanks for being on here today. And Coach Mackey, thanks for having me on your summit. Today, we're going to focus on how we accelerate the game planning and play calling process using the R4 system. And I don't know, Coach, where you're at in your career and what your goals are. But if your goal is to become a play caller and the head coach, this is something that I think could help accelerate that process for you. If you've experienced the game planning process on a staff, during a typical season, maybe you've experienced some of these, emotions and complications of that process. It can be very frustrating when you're in the game plan process with the staff. And the main reason is because you have a group of men in the room with different perspectives, different levels of experience, and therefore they don't see space the same. And they have a different view of reality based on those experiences and based on those perspectives. So I think the goal for a coordinator when you come into that environment is you've got to get everybody on the same page, and that's nothing new. We all know we need alignment and we need that. But how do we do that? And I think it starts with asking the most important question. And the most important question when it comes to offensive football is to define what is open. We have to get on the same page with that. In the absence of laying that definition down and being able to clearly identify that and see that the same, whether it's on the film or whether it's on the field, then we're going to have issues, especially when pressure's applied on Friday nights. So that was what our number one goal was when we set out to accelerate this process, is we have to define open. When you ask an expert coach on what open is for him or how he defines it or how he the process he uses to see space and how he knows the perfect play to call at the perfect time, what you're going to find is that he very rarely can explain that to you in a simplified way. As good as he may be at doing his job through years of experience and trial and error, or maybe he has a natural gift of seeing space and spatial awareness and the knack of knowing the right play to call, many times in the absence of a process and a common language and being able to define those things that he's doing, whether it's subconsciously or just naturally through a gift, he's not going to be able to teach others how to do that. And that's something that I've encountered a lot of times when I question an expert level coach is, how do you know what to call there? How do you do it? When a lot of times they just know, they can't explain it. So that was really what the goal here was. And the goal for R4 is to break down the science behind those expert decisions. And so what we had to do is look at experts outside of the domain of football. And experts in other domains have kind of cracked the code on this. And so that's what we did. And one of the examples that we came across in our research was the concept of negative space. And the concept of negative space is seen here in this FedEx logo, which is considered to be one of the best logos in marketing history. There's a hidden arrow between the E and the X, and that hidden arrow is formed by the position and the shapes of the E and X. In the absence of knowing that or somebody telling you that beforehand, you probably never saw it or didn't even know it existed. Now that you know it's there, okay, you know what to look for, your eyes will never deviate from that, whether you see it on a plane, car, shirt, from here on out. Your eye will always go to that arrow because you know the secret. And really that's what I wanted as a coach is I wanted to know the secret space that these experts can see. I wanted to in on that. And as a young coach, I couldn't see that. I couldn't see those spaces. So that is how want to teach our coaches and players and get us all on the same page is, how do we see open space? How can we quickly know where it's at and define it? Well, in order to do that, we have to define frames of reference, and we have to know what to look for. So intuition is this gift that great play callers, quarterbacks have. It's nothing more than pattern recognition. We got to recognize patterns faster. So how do we do that? Well, we have to define consistent frames of reference, stable regularities in the environment. And if we cannot do that, then we can't trust intuition. It's all just based on our own opinion, and we can't have that. And we got to have some absolutes here. So this is kind of how we bring that FedEx negative space concept into football. Here is our frames of reference, essentially our E and X, okay, of that FedEx logo on the football field. And what we name these frames of reference, we use an acronym to help remind us, okay, what they are and where they're located. We use this HALO acronym. This is a tool that allows us to see unseen space that others can't. And the unseen space is open space, which we call uncapped. So the H in HALO is the first key frames of reference. It's the horizontal hard deck line. H is for hard deck. It's a line that originates 7 yards from the line of scrimmage, and it divides vertical space from flat space. That's a key boundary or crossover point that we need to have awareness of as a coach, right? We want to take advantage of space vertically if it's available. So in the absence of that frame of reference, it's going to be up to the coach's own perspective and quarterbacks of what that is. And we can't have that gray area. So now we can clearly define vertical space, and we define it even more by breaking that vertical space down into 5 vertical tubes. Now, why 5 tubes? Why not 4? Why not 6? Well, we use the number of eligible receivers we can release to attack that space, okay, as the limiter. And so at American football, we can release at most 5 guys vertically downfield. So that's why we break the field up into 5 parts. So the field is 53 1/3 yards in width. So we break that down into 5 tubes that are around 10 yards and some change of width. And we label the tubes: middle of the field tube. We've got the boundary seam tube, field seam tube. We've got the boundary hole tube, the boundary field tube. So now we can clearly look above this hard deck line and easily see where open space is. Now, we use the word capped and uncapped in the R4 language. Those words were created using when we built out R4 for quarterbacks, and we bring that into the game planning and play calling process. So we're looking for uncapped space first. So using the frames of reference of the vertical tubes in the hard deck, we can now see that there are 2 vertical tubes that are uncapped based on the positioning of these defenders. So just a sweeping scan across this line, we can clearly see where the open uncapped space is. We can all be on the same page now. In the absence of those frames of reference, we might get into arguments with coaches and players on what space is actually open. And so this easily clears that communication up in the game planning process. So once that's identified, then we go to the next frame of reference in the HALO acronym. That's the A. That's for the apex line. The apex line is the midpoint between the end man on the line of scrimmage and the next eligible wide receiver. All right, so this line is going to fluctuate, okay, in position based on the split of the receiver. So if the receiver is tighter, the line moves in. If the receiver is wider, the line moves out. So that you're increasing space based on the formation. So this line is used heavily in RPOs to be able to communicate and generate intent of how these defenders are playing pre and post snap. So this dog linebacker, for example, is outside the apex line. So we can use this line to now see movement more clearly post snap. So that's one key use of the apex line. There's others that we'll get to in the game plan, but the apex line starts to frame out the run space and separate it from route space outside. The next key frame of reference in the HALO acronym is the L. That's for the line of center. That splits the formation into 2 sides. So that allows us now to easily see where the positioning of the defense is in our favor. We call that man advantage to a side. So that's what we use the line of center for. You can also use the line of center to communicate the movement of safeties pre and post snap, to one side of the field or the other. So you can kind of gauge where that man advantage is shifting post snap. So critical frame of reference for our players to understand as well as coaches. The last frame of reference is O. That's for the outside space outside the apex and underneath the hard deck. You may refer to it as flat space. We call it outside space because it has both run and route properties. And as a game planner and a play caller, you must know how the defense is intending to defend outside space. That's how they change coverages. So, I mean, whenever outside space availability is present, we need to make sure we're attacking that because that's usually the shortest, easiest throws to make to move the chains. So again, that's breaks the field now up into compartments. And if we add up the compartments of space availability using the halo, what we'll find is there's a number that's consistent. And so let's do some quick math here. If you think about football, you have route space that you can throw into, and you have run space you can attack. So that's really the two types of spaces that are available to advance the football. Run space is found in the run box in the form of gaps, and gaps are created by two adjacent linemen together. So we will talk about run space in a minute. Let's first look at route space. The vertical route space availability on any given down, any given formation is 5, because I can release at the most 5 receivers no matter what formation I'm doing. So that's going to be a non-negotiable no matter what formation personnel. So we always have 5 vertical spaces that we can attack. So that's the first 5 compartments that we have to consider. Okay, as we look below the hard deck line, you're going to look at your immediate threats outside the apex line and below the hard deck. So in this particular formation, we have 2 immediate threats to the left. That's 2 threats to the outside space to the left. So we have to add those into the count. So 5 plus 2 is 7. So there's 7 spaces that can be attacked in this pre-snap positioning of this formation. As we look to the outside space to the right, there's only 1 immediate threat that can attack this space, outside space to the right. So that's an 8th, okay? 8 different spaces that we can attack with route space. Okay, now if we look inside the run box, now we're talking about run space. Now it's about gaps. Okay, so we use the surface of the lineman to quickly communicate the gaps that are available to a side of space. So again, this is a 2-man surface. There's a guard and tackle left. That creates 3 gaps, A, B, and C gap. So that is 3 spaces of run space that are available to the left. So 8 plus 3 is 11. If you look to the right side of run space in the run box, I have a 3-man surface that creates 4 gaps, A, B, C, and D. So that is 4 additional gaps. So 11 plus 4 is 15. So what you'll find is no matter what formation or personnel you're using, there is always 15 compartments of space that the defense must defend. And for example, we can change the formation here. If I bring this receiver in or bring a tight end in and bring him inside the run box and attach him to the line of scrimmage, I gain a run gap, but I lose an immediate threat outside. So there's still 15 no matter what formation of linemen I have versus receivers. So that's something we need to understand. So 15 minus 11 defenders equals 4. So at a minimum, there's always going to be 4 spaces of negative space no matter what formation personnel. Okay, that is a non-negotiable, a peg I can hang my hat on as a play caller. So from a game planning perspective, that's my front door of entry into the game plan. I want to use the halo over the formation, see how the defense is lining up with their front and coverage, and identify quickly the 4 bubbles of static space that are available pre-snap. Now understand, things are going to move post-snap, and that's why the defensive game or the game planning process against the defense is in layers. This is the first layer, the first step. So we want to identify those 4 areas of negative space. We call those spaces bubbles. Bubbles, in our definition, are spaces that are void of a defender. That means there is no defender in proximity that can cap that space at that moment in time. So that is the first thing that we want to look at to see if we can attack in the game plan. So again, I'm going to just ask myself the question, do I have any route or any play in my playbook that can immediately attack these spaces? That's what I want to try to define first, or see if I have. You can see there's a bubble of space in the run box to the right. That's a rarity. You'll very rarely see that. Good defensive coordinators are going to make sure they are gap sound in the run box. So there's very rarely going to be a bubble space in the run box. If there is, that's a space of high priority we want to attack immediately. That's the easiest way to move the football. So again, when you see these bubbles of space, you need to ask yourself the question, okay, why is the defense giving me this? Okay, because there's probably a reason the defense is giving you a bubble in the run box. if that defensive coordinator is worth his weight at all. So maybe those players are better. Maybe they're inviting you to run into that because they're going to move this safety down post snap and rotate in there and take it away. So that kind of starts you to your checklist once you decide the play you want to use to attack that bubble. Okay, but again, we're going to get into how we phase and how we organize that out. But this is kind of the first thing we have to establish. So again, the first part of the game plan is to draw up our formations. Okay, decide how the defense is going to line up in that formation with their front coverage, find the bubbles of space, and then start to sketch in plays that are going to attack those bubbles. And that's the first layer. Right? Usually those are going to be passes or RPO attachments because very rarely a defense is going to give you bubbles of run space in the run box. So that takes us to the next phase of the game plan. The next phase of the game plan is we have to calculate man advantage to each side of space. Okay, so the first layer, the first part, the first step, put the halo over the formation, put the base front coverage that you think they're going to play. Okay, identify the bubbles of space and start to sketch in, okay, here's the 2, 3, or 4 plays that are going to attack these areas. Now, if I don't have plays that are going to attack these areas, maybe they place the bubbles in areas that I don't have the personnel or the plays to attack against that opponent. Then I have to go to the second layer, which is scheming space and creating space. And this is where man advantage comes into play. So you can see these numbers here. We have +1, +1, +0, +1. That's the man advantage count to each side of space. Okay, so there is 2 areas of space that we can tackle, route space and run space. So I can throw to the left of this formation, I can throw to the right. So let's look at the man advantage to the left. I have 2 immediate threats to the left. They have 3 defenders over those 2. So they have a +1 man advantage to the left. That does not mean I can't throw to the left. It just means that there's a bubble right here in the flat. It just means that they have 3 over 2. So if I'm calling pass concepts, particularly at intermediate concepts or play action deep shots, I want to try to neutralize that number to make sure that I'm putting my offensive play in the most favorable position. Okay. If we look to the route space to the right, I have 1 immediate threat to the right. They have 2 over 1. So that's a +1 to the route space to the right. So again, they have the man advantage. So if I want to neutralize the man advantage and make my concept to the right more sound, I want to try to add a receiving threat or use some strategies like maybe play action or a look off by the quarterback to neutralize those numbers. So again, that's scheming. Okay, now let's talk about the run space. Okay, when we look at the run space, let's look at the run space to the left. I have a 2-man offensive line surface to the left. They have 3 defenders over those 2. They have to have 3 over 2 to take away the A, B, and C gap to that side. So they have to have a +1 to take the bubble of space away, and they did that. So if I want to run weak here, I have to use a strategy to neutralize that number. I need 3 for 3 to create space. And so we'll talk about scheme strategies momentarily on how we do that. If I look to the right here, I have a 3-man surface. They only have a 3 for 3 there, so that's where the bubble is created in the run box. They are a gap short or a man short for one of those run gaps. So again, they're going to have to use this safety, or they're going to have to use some sort of post-snap movement with this backside backer to gain that number. Otherwise, we're going to be able to run that bubble all night. So again, that's how we start the second layer of the game planning process, is calculate the man advantage. And then if we need to run to a particular area that has a man advantage, we need to use strategies to neutralize that. So that's the second layer. Okay, so the first layer is, okay, what concepts do I have to attack these bubbles of static space pre-snap? And then if I want to run into areas that have the man advantage in the run box, okay, what schemes can I use to neutralize that? So that's really the 2 rules of thought in the 2 phases. Okay, now, again, all this is static, and we live in a static whiteboard world first. We're going to sketch our plays. The last thing that we have to do, we do this on Sunday, is we grade the personnel of these defenders to then know how they're going to react post-snap to different schemes. And based on those grades, we can put the stamp of approval on a run or pass play and know it's going to work, or we know the adjustments we need to make because their personnel may be better in an area. Okay, so that's really the 3 phases. So it's, okay, what plays can I use to attack immediate bubbles, spaces void of a defender, right? What schemes can I use to neutralize the man advantage and create bubbles? And then what are the personnel grades of these defenders on runs and passes? And is my personnel and that scheme going to hold up against their personnel grades? That's the 3 layers of the game planning process we do. Now, once we go through that 3-step process, then we're going to pull those plays into a grid and start to network plays in an if-then decision-making platform, because you know as well as I do, the defense is not going to stay static, and they're not going to stay in the same front or coverage. They're going to move guys post-snap with stunts and blitzes. They're going to change fronts and coverages. So we have to have other play calls or other adjustments in anticipation of those changes. So how do we link all of these ideas together where we can easily go from one play to the next best play based and anticipate these moves before the defensive coordinator can efficiently make them? And that's the goal, is to always stay one step ahead or get into his brain, in his decision-making loop, and kind of read his mail per se. So this is kind of how we do it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull this grid in. You can see this. This is what we call an R4 formational grid. All right. And so all the formations we plan on using, we'll bring into this template. Right. This is a 2x2 11 personnel formation. Right. And we have just broken down the base front and coverages within the huddle scout film that we've received. And we're going to put their base front and coverage on this sheet of paper. You can see this is an over front with cover 6 being played over the top in coverage. Cover 6 is quarter with cover 2 to the boundary. It's a split field coverage. So it's quarter, half. And you can see that we brought the numbers of the defenders in here. And we'll use that for the accelerator grades, where you can see the man advantage shows up to each side of space. And you can see the bubbles have illuminated here. These are spaces that are void of defender. So now we have the information that we need to draw up the best plays. Okay, this grid below it is how we network plays together in an if-then format, and each box has a question that we must answer to decide, okay, why that play is the best against this anticipated adjustment. So this is where we get inside the decision-making loop of the coordinator. So what we have to do is we have to break down the different situations that could occur in a game. So the primary situations we call the rhythm plays. Okay, and rhythm plays are our best plays against the base front and coverage that we anticipate the defensive coordinator playing. Okay, there's 2 types of plays in football, really 3 now in the modern game. You can run the ball, you can pass the ball, or you can do both with an RPO or an option. Okay, so that's the 3 styles of play. Now, the 2 main styles are run and pass. So we break down play calls into runs, strong and weak, because I can run strong or I can run weak. That's the only 2 ways I can run the ball. And then on throws, my standard throw could be a quick game concept at or just beyond the line of scrimmage underneath 5 yards, or it could be an intermediate concept with routes that break over 10 yards. So that's really the 2 styles of base runs and base passes that you'll have. Okay, now, so we want to establish, okay, what are our best, okay, rhythm plays, our rhythm run strong, weak, what's our best quick game, what's our best intermediate game. Now, you may have formations for particular years where you don't have a quick game. Maybe RPOs are your quick game. So RPOs are a hybrid that's going to be attached to runs. So we can put those in there. Play actions are going to be in different areas. So again, rhythm plays are our best plays, okay, that are going to attack the base front and coverage of the opponent. So if they line up in the same front and coverage that we anticipate, these plays should work as long as our personnel can uphold the strategy we employ against their personnel. So that's the definition. So again, we're looking for plays we can run 3 to 5 times a game out of that particular formation. That's the goal. So we use the halo to help drive that decision. So again, where do we start? We start with the strong run. Okay, so is there any play that we have in our offense that particular year that we can run and have a high priority success to the strong side of this formation? That's what we're asking ourselves. Okay, so again, we were a strong 1-back power team that particular year. So against an over front, we felt good about blocking our center back, getting a double, we call it deuce combination on the 3 technique to the backside Mike. We felt the tight end could handle the pin player, which is number 33. Our guard's going to pull up to number 3, and we're going to run in that bubble of space. Okay, our tackle's going to just block out in the 5. We're going to push crack that safety to try to keep him out. So again, as long as our personnel, okay, can hold up the scheme strategy against their personnel, this is going to be a solid play. We can run this all night as long as they stay the same. So that's when we establish that as our rhythm play. Now, with RPOs, we can further enhance our run plays by looking outside to route space outside the apex lines. And if we find a bubble, we can attach an RPO that can take advantage of it. So for example, in this particular formation, we could use what we call a fire screen. Some people call these smokes. Okay, we can use this now, which we call a fire to the right. We can attach that to our one back power. Now we have a really solid play. We can attack 2 bubbles of space. So again, that's how we kind of determine and rank the best plays that will work against the anticipated front end coverage that's going to be played. Okay, so that's our strong side run. So we just work from there. Okay, now the next layer of that, and we're going to go ahead and fill this all in. Then we're going to circle back and we're going to come back as a staff and we're going to look at our accelerator grades. Okay, so we're going to draw up that one back power play, and then we're going to look at the grades of 51. Okay, as we look at scout film, we're looking for down blocks or base blocks against 51, and we have to determine, can we handle that penetration against 51 with a block back by our center? And maybe we saw he had negative penetration grade. So again, we feel good about this play. We look at number 5 and we watch his double teams against that particular opponent. And we saw that he had positive penetration on double teams. Well, now we might be concerned with this one back power. Maybe our guard and tackle can't keep him off the line of scrimmage. Maybe he's going to split it like he did the previous opponent. So we have to have conversations. Is our left guard and tackle going to be better than what we saw on our scout film? And so if it is, then we keep the play in. One of the concerns we had in this particular game against this particular opponent was our tight end on 33. 33 was a positive pin player. Okay, pin player is, in your terminology, maybe a force or a contain player. So he was a D-gap player, and that's a pin. He had positive pin grade against base blocks, and we weren't sure our tight end could handle that. So that's going to be a question of concern. So we have to have a conversation as a staff. Can our guy handle that? And if we feel he can, then we keep it in. If we're unsure, we might have to call this play early in the game to find out, and therefore adjust that rhythm play in the game, as opposed to keep running it 2 or 3 times. And I think that's a mistake that I used to make early on in my career. Is I would call a play like that against a personnel mismatch 2 or sometimes even 3 more times before I realized we couldn't do it. And those were better play calls that I could have made with something else. So again, I think that's what is the differentiator between big games won and lost. It's calling 5 or 6 fewer bad play calls a game. So this will help you eliminate fewer bad play calls. All right, again, so that's kind of how we have to go through, and that's our final checklist, is look at the personnel grade to see if that holds up. And if that scheme holds up against our personnel grades that we make, then we will keep that play in as a rhythm. If it doesn't, then we might have to look at another play. So again, that's done for everything we do. Now, I don't have time to go into how we grade personnel accelerators for run and pass. It's probably the best thing that we do aside from this, what I'm giving you here. I'm going to talk about some things at the end of this presentation where you can go to find out how we do that. But let's go ahead and move on to the weak side run space. And the next thing we want to address is, do I have a rhythm play that I can run to the weak side of the formation? Okay, maybe you don't, so you just move on. Maybe you don't have any weak side runs out of that particular formation, or maybe that side of the line is not going to hold up against the personnel that you're going against, so you just leave it off. If you do, then we scheme something here. So here's an example of another situation that occurs commonly in the run box. Most of the time, you'll have a +1 man advantage to a side of run space. So for example, they have 3 defenders over these 2. So we have to neutralize that. So how do we do that? There's 3 scheme strategies that you can use on run and pass plays. And the strategies are going to be dependent on if it's run or pass. The words stay the same though. It's fake, flow, and flood. Okay, that's the 3 scheme strategy buckets that you have available to pull tools out of. So again, what's a fake strategy? A fake strategy is reading a defender. So maybe you're not going to block him, you're just going to read him. So you're going to suspend him for a moment in time and neutralize the man advantage, okay, to that side. So again, that's one example, okay? A flow scheme is using motion or misdirection. Could be the flow of the back one direction, he cuts back, or it could possibly be like maybe it's a jet sweep action or a motion, and you can get this linebacker to come out of the box, and you can create a 2-on-2 for a moment in time. There's many examples of flow schemes, okay? But that's another scheme strategy you can employ. A flood scheme is taking one or more blockers from one side of space and bringing them over to the other side. So one example is using the tailback as a lead blocker. A lot of times defenses will not treat the tailback as a lead blocker. They'll treat him as a ball carrier. So when you use that tailback off the center line and you use him as a lead blocker, that's a flood scheme. We're flooding space. So using the tailback as a lead blocker and running the quarterback, okay, is a flood strategy. And so now we can create a bubble because we are man advantage neutral now, right? So that's some things you want to look at. So that's a quarterback draw, okay? And again, we can accelerate and enhance this play by attaching an RPO with it. So we decided to attach the stick with the slot receiver. We just run this receiver off. The stick attacks this bubble of space, okay? And then we can use the quarterback draw as the run. So this is a pass run option, a PRO. Okay, so we call this Q dragon is draw. Jag is our code word for the stick. So this is stick draw. So the quarterback would draw it back. He'd read the dog linebacker. If he caps the stick, then he runs the draw into the bubble that we created by using the flood strategy. So again, this is how the game planning process goes. And really, this is the fun stuff that we enjoy doing as coaches is, scripting the plays and creating space. So again, the grid helps us organize it and not get off the train tracks and draw up 5 or 6 different plays that attack to the same space. So again, it streamlines the process. So again, the final indicator of whether we like this play or not is going to be based on the personnel accelerator grades. For example, we have to grade, 51's penetration ability against a double team. We have to grade number 4's ability on an out block, and if we can neutralize that, we have to grade our ability of our tailback to take on this plug player. How good's 47? Can our tailback handle him? So these are things that we have to go through to finalize, okay, the viability of this play call. And if it holds up the accelerator grades, we know it's going to be good as long as they stay in this base front coverage. Okay, again, so we continue to play this game for every type of play. So again, if we were going to do a 3-step concept, how do we game plan a 3-step concept against this base front and coverage? Well, it's all about the bubbles of space. Now, you may not have quick game. We do a lot of hybrid quick game with intermediate tags on the backside. So, for example, as I look at the space here, how do I know the best quick game play to call? Well, we have a double slant concept in our offense, probably like everybody else. So I like our double slant into that bubble. Right on the backside, I have a bubble of space above the hard deck to the boundary hole tube. So we run a vertical switch choice concept on the backside of these concepts. So this vertical switch choice concept would attack this bubble of space. So again, I could rhythm saint, reset, read the vertical switch choice concept, and then rush my tailback in the flat. And that would create an R4 progression that would be very good against this base front and coverage. So we call that saint is slant, Philly is our code for vertical switch. So again, that's how we play the game. Right. Again, we have to grade the personnel accelerators of how these defenders play in route space and what their closure ability is. So we have all that we do to confirm if this play is going to hold up. So hopefully what you're seeing here is we're playing the game before it's played, and we're able to, with the personnel accelerator grades, kind of know with a high probability if this play is going to work. And I think that's really the thing that helped us with most was going to the game with more confidence based on the check and balances system that we created with R4. Okay, again, let's go to an example of a 5-step concept. Okay, this 5-step concept, if you're an air raid team, you do a lot of 5-step concepts. So again, how do you know the best 5-step concept to call? Well, we want to make sure whatever 5-step concept we call attacks the bubbles of space that are available against this particular coverage. So again, we decided to use a inverted scissors concept where you have a corner and a glance that comes underneath. The glance attacks the middle of field bubble. On the backside, we have a backside default tag called Cobra, which stands for corner shallow. And you can see the corner attacks the bubble of space into the boundary, and the shallow attacks the bubble of space in the flat to the field. So again, that's why we felt this concept's a sound concept, because we're getting multiple receivers into different areas of uncapped space. Now, again, these bubbles may move post-snap, and that's where the personnel accelerator grades help confirm if this play is going to hold up. So we call that lasers the protection, cougars the concept. So again, we might need to look at the accelerator grades of how good they are with their pass rush. And for example, if number 4 has a positive pin grade on his pass rush, maybe 33 has a positive pin grade as well in his pass rush, maybe this intermediate concept's not going to hold up. Maybe we need to make a protection adjustment or just take it out or move the pocket. So again, everything that we do that we sketch in for rhythm has a checks and balances system with the accelerator grades that allow us to confirm if it's going to work or not. And that's a really important part of the process and the final step. Okay, so now we've just game planned 4 rhythm plays, a strong to the run, a run to the strong side of space, a run to the weak side, a quick game, and a 5-step. So as long as they stay in that same base front and coverage, and as long as our personnel grades are correct, and we've gauged that correctly, we don't need any other plays as long as they stay in this look. The problem is that the defensive coordinator is not going to stay in this base front and coverage if we have success. So now we start to game plan and predict what's the most anticipated adjustment he's going to make. A lot of times scout film can reveal that. Sometimes it won't. So you have to put your defensive coordinator hat on and rank, okay, what adjustment he's going to make. So the adjustments he's going to make are when we go to the read column. Okay, the read column of plays in the R4 grid allow us to game plan the best play or adjustment that's going to answer the most anticipated defensive adjustment or mismatch of personnel. So this is where you kind of rank the probability threat that the defensive coordinator is going to use. You can't game plan 5 to 6 different answers for all the things that could go wrong. And that's really where we get lost in the game planning process, or at least that's where I did. I wanted answers for everything. Experts don't do that in any field. Navy SEALs don't worry about the 100 different things that could go wrong. They rank the highest threat in the situation. They have an answer and they execute. All right. Make a decision, move on. That's what experts do in any field. That's what we need to do. So as you look at the scout film, one of the things you want to be able to look at in the run game is, do they play any other fronts, or do they have a common stunt that they use, or they have a run blitz they use? I mean, that's some things you want to look at. So the read column for us is for different fronts in the run game, or it could be a personnel mismatch. Okay, so we have to rank. If we worry about a personnel mismatch to the side of space, right, we may need an answer for that. So here's an example. And against this particular opponent, besides the over front, they would slide their front strong and play an odd front out of 4-man personnel. So that is going to cause issues for a one-back power play. So we look at how that affects the one-back power. We now have to double team the nose back to the 47, the mic, which is a more difficult angle to pick the mic up. Now we're on a down block on number 5. So now instead of double teaming 5, who was really good, now we got a single block on him. And now we've got to base out on 33, the pin player, which he was really good regardless. So now we have 2 single blocks at the point of attack. So again, that might be why they have shown this particular front. So now they have 2 single blocks with their best defender. That's going to make it hard for that puller to get up to 3. So this could be an issue for us. So we have to answer this particular personnel mismatch that's created by the front change. So how do we do it? Well, in this particular game, we decided to have a heavy tag where we take our tight end, who was a mismatch on 33, and we put him weak, and we bring our 2 tackles together to go against their 2 dominant defensive linemen. So now we felt we could evenly match personnel, and that was our particular adjustment. Now, again, there's a million things you can do to protect your base play. It's all based on the scheme, the tags you have, or the personnel that you have available. So that's going to change year in, year out. So again, that was our best answer that we predicted would work against that anticipated adjustment. Again, prioritize your best answer and move on. You may not have an answer, so move on. You're just going to have to get out of that run to the strong side against that particular opponent if it doesn't work. So we do that. So again, you're not going to have read plays for all of your concepts. You don't need answers for everything. It's just the highest priority threats. You might have, for example, on the weak side, we didn't need an answer because we felt we could handle, 51, 4, and 47. The personnel was evenly matched. Okay, so again, that's what you're doing as you go through the grid. Okay, now let's look at the rush column. Okay, the rush column is the next situation that you have to prepare for. Okay, what's the rush column for us? The rush column are the best plays that answer the most anticipated pressure that the defense could be. So pressure is created by overloading space. So it's overloading with blitzes. It could be overloading with a stunt. It could be overloading with coverage rotation or a front change. So it's an overload of numbers. So in the run game, when we look in our scout data, we saw that their most common blitz was a green dog pressure off the edge. So this could cause us issues on our one back power, because in the one back power RPO, the C gap is unprotected. So if they bring this dog pressure, we're going to have issues. So we need to have an answer for it. So we decided to change, okay, or put in this different RPO scheme, which we call our outside zone RPO scheme, where from the center over to the left, they're blocking outside zone. Okay. From the center back, they're going to protect the backside B and C gap. So this protects the C gap blitz. Now we read the mic to determine if we're going to give the outside zone or we're going to keep it in RPO, the flat defender, with the quick game slant concept. So we call that Olay to the left. Again, it's not about the plays. It's about the process you use to handle the most anticipated pressure. So that was our best answer there. The different types of plays you could have in rush column could be a naked boot, could be a play action here off of your base run. It could be any one of those things that answer an overload to the side of run space you're trying to attack. So again, that's what you're going to use there. I get asked all the time, well, what would be an example of a rush play for passes, like your 3-step or your 5-step? It could be a different protection adjustment to protect an anticipated blitz. It could be a screen, or it could be a draw. So those are some of the strategies you can use to put there. Another thing you think about is pressure in the passing game is not always blitz. A lot of times it can be dropping 8 guys into space. So that could be, if we see, them dropping 8 guys into space, maybe these concepts won't hold up. So maybe we need a draw or, some sort of different quarterback run to answer that. So that could go there. So again, pressure can be in a variety of forms. Okay, so that frames out the rush column. Now the last column here on the play call sheet is the release column. Okay, so what's the release column for? The release column is the shot play you're trying to set up. It's your tendency breaker. Okay, it's your bluff if you're playing poker. So again, these are very valuable play calls. And again, you don't need a lot of these because you have to run the setup play numerous times in the game to make this to work. And you're only calling the release plays one time, if any. So again, the release plays are tied to the rhythm. So the release play definition is it's the best play, explosive play, I should add, that is set up off your rhythm, your base play. So again, if we've done our job against this base front and coverage and we're working one back power with the fire screen, okay, what is something that we anticipate seeing against this opponent to take the fire screen away if they stay within the base front and coverage? Well, these corners and safeties are going to start getting aggressive and coming up to run through to make the tackle. There's a high probability that's going to occur. So our release play for this particular rhythm play is the block and go, which we call torch. So we place that there. So again, there's a variety of things that you could put there. And a lot of these are going to be game plans specifically for that opponent that you're playing that particular week. So again, decide the best one and move on. And you only need 3 to 4 of those a game for your base one. So again, that frames out, okay, the most common situations that you're going to have in football. So again, your rhythm plays, okay, are your best plays that are going to work against the most anticipated front and coverage you anticipate in that particular situation. Again, okay, these are our plays we script and practice for on Monday. So on the weekend, okay, we're focused on game planning the rhythm plays. That's all we're focused on. Okay, this gives us another day to game plan the replays. These are practiced on Tuesday. Replays are our best answer, our most anticipated answer to the rhythm plays. It's the personnel mismatches that could be a problem, or it's going to be different looks that could cause a problem for the rhythm play. That's done on Tuesday. Rush day, pressure day, is done on Wednesday. So that's the day we work on all our situational blitzes, our overloads within our formation, our third downs. That's rush day. And then release day is tied to Monday, because usually those are one-offs that we put in that are special to that, more specific to that opponent. So release and rhythm are done on Monday. So Monday's our heaviest day, all right? And what this grid does, it allows us to install the game plan in bite-sized pizzas for our players to digest. It gives us more days, all right, to game plan and solidify the plan for situations that could cause us problems, read rush and days in particular. And so it just really streamlined the game planning process for me as a coach. It really gave me guardrails, and it prevented me from getting off and chasing rabbits that I was most often doing. Furthermore, it helped me to explain my mental process to the players and coaches, where on Friday night, a lot of times the coaches are giving me the feedback before I even can get it out. We're all on the same page. We're aligned. So the game is much more fun. The coaches aren't just watching the ball now. Everybody's aligned. Players are coming to the sidelines and they're giving us recommendations on what we should do based on the things we talked about in practice. So we're empowering our players to be like coaches. And we're all confident in the communication because we're seeing space the same. We're working through the same frames of reference, the same language. So again, a lot of benefits for that. Okay, now one more thing I want to show you is our play call sheet and how we use this grid to kind of inform our play call sheet. So if I bring the play call sheet up here, you're going to see this play call sheet is now situated like the field of play. Okay, and this is zoomed out, but our play call sheet is broken down into left hash that I've highlighted here, right hash, which is highlighted here, and middle of the field. Now, middle of the field doesn't have a lot of plays inputted in these grids because you're only in the middle of the field about 10 to 12 snaps a game. Most of the game in high school is played on the hash. So those are going to be loaded a lot more heavily. Now, it looks like a lot here, but really what I want to show you is it's really a little. I'm going to zoom into this upper left-hand quadrant here. And what you're going to see is when we game plan, 80% of our play calls are going to be made off of these 4 formational grids. Here's the grid that we just went over as a staff. Okay, this was the grid that we just filled out. I didn't get a chance to put the last release shot play in off the weak side run, but again, there is 8 plays there in that grid. That's a rhythm grid for us. That means that we feel we were an 11 personnel team, 2x2. We felt we're going to run a lot of stuff out of that. So we put that up in this top left section. There's 3 other formations that we felt really good about that particular opponent. So again, of all of these plays, I'm hopefully living here in the game during the rhythm section, and I'm just juggling between formations. And I've played the game out before I've been played. So actually filling out the grids of the formation helped me play the game out mentally during the week. So my best games, I don't even look at the play call sheet. You can see here's the read column for all those formations. Here is the protection plays or the plays that protect the most anticipated adjustment from the defense. So those are played out in the read section. Here is all the plays or adjustments we need for anticipated pressures. And then here's our shot plays that we've set up off the rhythm plays. So again, most of the game plan is played off a little section on the play call sheet that could fit on a note card. So if you're a big air raid guy and you're enamored by Coach Leach and Riley and those guys that have all the plays fit on a little piece of paper, this is the equivalent to that. And I think that's what the best play callers do. Everything's protected in those offenses. This streamlines that process for you and puts it on a sheet where you can have your decisions and your if-then network created sequentially. Okay, again, so if we looked at the right-hand side, it would be the same plays just flipped. In the middle of the field, we're going to have different plays game plan for the middle of the field. So you see, if we looked at the middle of the field, there was only 2 formations and only 2 plays. So I think as a coach, you're leaving money on the table in high school because I think you need to game plan middle of the field separately because there's space advantage that's equal on both sides. So there's certain things you can do with formations and plays that take advantage when you're in the middle of the field. Okay, again, so we game plan that separately. So most of the game plan is done on the hash, and then we game plan about 10 plays because that's the average number of plays that we have in the middle of the field, and that frames out the play call sheet. Now, there are other spaces on this play call sheet because different teams have different personnel, different offenses. So again, if I'm like a 10 personnel team, an air raid team, I mean, I'm just going to have basically you're going to have trips. You may have 2x2. You may have empty, and you may have like a different split, like a reduced, like a crunch and bunch set. You know, I mean, you're not going to have a lot. So a formation. So you're going to have more of your grid filled out. So again, if you use few formations, you're going to have more of this filled out. If you use a lot of formations, you're going to have less of it filled out, and you may need more room for formational grids. So what we do is we have another section on our play call sheet here. This section is for different personnel and different formations. So maybe you're a multi-personnel formation team. These could be, 21 or 12 personnel formations or 22, whatever you want to use. So again, this particular year, we had some 21 and 12 personnel formations, and we didn't have a lot of plays in these formations because that wasn't our base personnel. So we put these grids in the read section. So again, there's a place for it if you need it. If you don't, if you're strictly one personnel and you don't do a lot, you will not have anything in here. Okay, the next set of grids that we have on our play call sheet are called rush grids. And these are for formations that are kind of situationally specific. So what I mean by that is maybe you only go empty on third down. All right, so we need a different section for that grid. It's not something they're going to live in. So we would put this formation here and that's empty. Maybe we only have 3 plays that we use on third down. Maybe it's a formation with a motion package. Maybe it's a special personnel with a few of your best defenders in it. Maybe it's any kind of one-off you're going to use in a red zone, a third down, or a goal line. That's going to go in the rush section. It's when your pressure's on and you need your best players or your best stuff against that. That's what goes there. So example. So you may not have anything here, but if you need it, it's there. And I still have a situational grid that I pull plays that are existing above into it, where my eyes need to go to it faster. So let's talk about goal line is a high pressure situation for many coaches. So I'm going to pull my goal line plays into this section, and I'm going to list my best run, my pass, and my 2 points here. And so that gives me a place when the pressure is really on, I'm down the goal line, I can go to it faster. So these plays might be listed elsewhere in my grids. It gives me just another place to look at them if I get lost. Okay, red zone's another big one. So we pull our best red zone plays. They could be plays that are already existing above, but I pull them down here as well. So if I get lost or the pressure's on, I can find them quicker. Okay, third down, obviously we got to win on third down, and third down is really down and distance specific a lot of times for defensive coaches and offensive coaches as well. So I pull my best third down plays, and a lot of these can be existing in the other portion of the grid. I just pull them down again here. So in those pressure situations, I can find them faster. So again, that's how we build out this play call sheet. So our play call sheet now is not down and distance driven so much anymore. It's driven by defensive movements. It's what we call accelerator driven. It's driven by the defensive actions, the reality of what I'm seeing. Again, so there's the whole play call sheet. Again, most of it is just on these 4 formational rhythm grids here to the left of Ash and to the right Ash. And this allowed us to be way more streamlined and get all the coaches and players aligned on how to see the field and how to operate under pressure. So again, I hope that gives you some ideas. There's a lot more stuff to cover here, and I could go in depth with how we grade. I don't have enough time for that. So what I want to do is I want to give you the opportunity to see some of the resources we have available to go into a deeper dive if, in fact, you want to. What I just talked about was written and released last April, and the book is called What is Open, and it's accelerating answers for football's most important game planning and play calling questions. So we go into how we grade accelerators. We go into how we break down the opponent in more detail. That whole process is written in that book. You can go online at r4footballsystem.com and you can buy that. There is a discount code that we have available if you want to become a member of our online system. If you like this video module and you want more of it, we have 75 modules like this that are in TED Talk style form, 15 to 20 minutes, that give you film in a step-by-step breakdown of how we do all this. We give you concepts, we give you strategies that are occurring in football. For example, we have 5 modules on the Iowa State 3 safety defense on how to break that down and how to attack it. So again, we're always trying to give you as a coach the best ways to accelerate everything you do in the game of football. That's what R4 is for. So if you want the deep dive, you can put in the code SPRINGBREAK30, get online, buy a membership, and get access to all that. So again, whatever you want, we're just here to help you in whatever you want to do. So again, book is a great way to enter into that, or if you want to get online, you can do that as well. And if you got enough out of this presentation, great. I just wish the best for you. I don't want you to have to go through some of the failures that I made as a coach and some of the experiences I made early on, and that's what R4 was created for. Thanks for your time. If you need to hit me up, you can message me on Twitter at Coach Dub Maddox, or you can email me at r4footballsystem@gmail.com. Thanks, Ron, for having me on. Coaches, thanks for your time. Hope to see you someday in the off season. Best of luck this season.
Dub, thank you so much, man. That was unbelievable. And again, every time we talk, I come away with the thought of, 1, you're a freaking genius, and 2, I learned something every single day. So thank you so much for this, coaches. Again, go ahead, get the R4 system. I'm going to be honest, I'm a member as well because I learned from the best. Dub's the best. I think you should get it. If you haven't, get his books, all of that stuff. Now, we have one more video tomorrow, closing the Build Your Program Summit. Thank y'all for being here, and I will see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. Let's do this, man. And until next time, let's continue to mash the spread, score points, and have fun.